Richard, thank you so much for joining us. The last time we had you here, the Spurs were struggling, had just lost 2 straight, and now they're coming off a 2-game winning streak over those same 2 teams, the Lakers and the Utah Jazz. What was the difference the second time around?
So, Micah, when's the last time we had a 2-game winning streak? Like last year, right? I think it was somewhere back at last year. You know, I think the difference has been, number one, of course, playing at home. You know, it's a reversal of fortunes for the Spurs in that they're playing so well at home, 9-4 now after the win the other night against the Jazz, and I also think it's sustained defensive play. You know, they weren't able to do that on the road once the things kind of deteriorated. They just could not find their mojo again. They found something. They found some kind of a mojo, and I think it's happening on defense, Jill. I think that's one of the things that the Spurs are kind of learning as a new system, a new bunch of players, is that, you know what, if you play sustained defense in the Western Conference, you have an opportunity to win this year. You see how bunched up things are. That's something the Spurs are kind of learning as they go.
In their first game against the Jazz set a franchise record with the most 3-pointers. And then just on Sunday night, the Spurs hold them. They have a season low in points allowed in the first half. What defensive adjustments did they make the second time around on the Jazz? You
know, it's interesting when you look at I think in a few months from now, hopefully, we'll be looking back at a moment where the Spurs might have discovered themselves a little bit. I think the fourth quarter against the Lakers, when they only gave up 19 in that great turnaround win on earlier, that was one of those moments I think the Spurs discovered, hey, you know what, if we give teams a lot of different looks, if we really are very active on defense and kind of keep things kind of swirling out there, it makes a big difference. I mean, the Spurs were very stagnant on defense. They were not moving. And against the Jazz in particular, I found myself just watching that defense and the rotations that were happening, charging at the 3-point line, you know, making some things happen, being in some faces. I think that made a big difference, and I'm wondering if you and I will be talking in March, and we'll say, remember that night in December when the Spurs did something that they hadn't done all year? Maybe they discovered a little something. Let's hope.
Let's hope. It's almost comical, the difference between their first 2 games against these 2 teams, the Lakers and Jazz, and then their second 2 games. What can we take away from this 4-game stretch?
Well, I'll tell you one thing we can take away is the fact that this, as bad as things were, the 3 30-point losses, you know, the miserable showing on the road, all the different things that have happened to the Spurs this year, they come out of that Jazz game, they're within 2 games of the 8th seed in the Western Conference. This conference is out of control this year. I've never seen anything like this. So as much as we're kind of moaning about how the Spurs have been playing and then how different they are than they've been in the past, and that's true, the fact that they are still in it, you know, I'm just telling you, if you find a little something, if you find kind of your momentum and your mojo a little bit, all of a sudden you're part of something special down the stretch here. I'm not saying, I hate to be Pollyanna, I'm not being that, you know, that, oh, look at the rainbows and pretty and unicorns, you know, but I think the Spurs, you know, they can creep up on some people and maybe do some damage down the stretch. So I'm going to take these last 4 games and say the Spurs have discovered something. They'll move forward. Let's see what they do going into Christmas and having a nice home stretch here.
You're going to take the glass half full.
I am taking the glass half full. I'm stubborn about this. It's the holidays. They're going to do something, I feel.
This next week will also test them immensely with these next 4 home games, finishing up their 6-game home stretch. They have the Suns tomorrow night, and then the Clippers will be a big test on Thursday. Also, the 76ers coming to town this upcoming weekend. What do they need to do to come out on top and get the most of this week?
Well, I think, number one, you've got to beat the 76ers, you know, a team that they've had some good success with in the past. You got to beat the Bulls. You know, you've got to beat the Suns. You've got to beat those teams that you're supposed to beat. You're not supposed to go to Phoenix and lose those kind of games. The Spurs take care of business against the teams they're supposed to take care of and maybe steal one of those games against the Clippers, who they also have had success against, or the Sixers. Then all of a sudden, you know, you're heading into the Christmas season feeling pretty good about yourself. Again, they've won 9 of their first 13 at home. I think that'll be a big difference if they come out of that feeling pretty good before they hit the road.
Just after our conversation, you already have me feeling a little more optimistic going into the holidays.
It's the holidays. You got to feel good. You got to feel good.
Richard, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.